documentary, okay, I have to say that overall, I thought it was pretty well done. I thought that at first it started very fair to both Chris and then, of course, to Rihanna as well, right? First of all, in terms of their kindness towards Rihanna, they were kind enough not to show pictures of her injuries. We all know how Chris Brown viciously punched her in the face, gave her these black eyes, gave her a knot on her head, busted her lip. He did everything, right? And they were kind enough to not go and show that. So to which I say, kudos to you guys on that. And then when it comes to Chris Brown and his own issues and what could have possibly possessed him to do that or to think it was normal to do something like that, they also went ahead and tried to explain it. They said Chris grew up in a family where his stepdad was doing this sort of thing to his mother. So there they are trying to humanize him as well. So I said, okay, there you go, trying to humanize Chris. I'm not yet seeing anything that is super inflammatory so far. And then on top of that, they go ahead and say that, hey, Chris Brown has been diagnosed with PTSD. He's also been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and, just these other things, right? So I said, wow. So they're also making a case for him by saying he's got issues mentally, right? And a lot of this is a result of him witnessing similar behavior as an impressionable child. So I do think that they really, really tried there to not be an attacking sort of a documentary, but to be a documentary that more so educates people, right? Then they talked about Rihanna and how her own history kind of led to her taking him back and everything like that, right? So I don't know. There is a controversial person who appeared in the documentary, and this person was kind of like their identity was hidden when they appeared in the documentary, and we will get to her later. But so far, I don't know, y'all. So far, I'm not seeing it. Okay. And so what do we find out a little bit later? They do a full-blown timeline. And to think, by the way, you guys, that and Capone, what caused it was that they were driving after a Grammy Award event, and Rihanna saw his phone, and he had like inappropriate text messages with another woman. It was rumored to be his former manager or his manager at the time. And then she confronted him, and he was like, how dare you confront me about cheating? I'm Fist Brown. I can cheat whenever I want to, right? And then that led to all of this, right? And so they then get into a timeline of Chris's history, and it was worse than I even thought, y'all. It was worse than I thought. I only thought that there was Rihanna. I thought there was Karrueche, maybe one other person, and that was it. But in the timeline, and they weren't just talking about, oh, he was casually accused here and there. Like, people were filing actual police reports about this man. And this man was settling a lot of these cases outside of court as well. And I think that that's why a lot of us may not have known about some of these other issues, right? Because again, he was full-blown settling. And here's my question. Why are you rushing to settle things, right? If what people are saying about you is not true. And you're this millionaire with all this money, all these resources in the world to crush these people in court, fight to clear your name, and you're not doing that. To me, it's kind of like when Diddy went ahead and settled with Cassie in like less than 24 hours. To me, that was an admission of guilt, right? So some of the incidents that they laid out, and again, documents were there. They had receipts, there were screenshots, literally, like everything, right? So apparently he had broken a random man's nose. How did I never hear about this? There was a time where he was outside of like some venue, and these ladies, good morning, Stephanie, and everybody else filing in. It is so nice to have you all here for the morning report. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So he was outside of a venue taking photos with some fans. And of course it's two female fans. And this guy, he pops up out of nowhere in the background to photobomb. He wants to be in the photo too. It's Chris Brown. It's not every day, right? Is it rude? Yeah, but he was just in the background of this photo. Apparently Chris notices this man is photobombing their photo. What does he do? Picks up his trusty fist and then punches this man in the face. And what happens? He breaks this man's nose. So this man sued him, and Chris settled it. He didn't want any kind of I don't think he went like the criminal route, but he got his money out of Chris Brown, right? Then there was another case where he goes off to rehab, and this is what one of you guys brought up on Friday's stream, right? Chris Brown had been sentenced to anger management because he had a string of incidences and a string of incidents. And, his management was really worried about him. Like, this man truly has an issue, right? Exactly. Exactly, Shani. What? Like, I don't think he's going to win this case. I don't think he's going to win it, right? And so we find out, shout out to my co-reporter who brought this up in the live chat last week, but we find out about this time where he goes to rehab. His mom and his family members are brought in to help with this whole thing. And he wants to get out, but his mom's like, Chris, I think it would be good for you to stay a little bit longer. What does he do to prove her point? He takes a rock, goes outside, whips it at his mom's car window, shatters the entire front window of his mother's car. And so, the people speaking here, right? Like counselors, police, all sorts of things. They're like, look at this. This guy would do this sort of thing to his own mother. No wonder he has a history of doing these things to random women, right? Like, this guy just does not respect women at all. He does not like women at all. And then you also see videos of him threatening Karrueche, right? Remember when he was stalking her, following her places and whatnot? We find out that he was watching her social media pages to find out where she'd be. And then he'd pop up there. And one of them was the most famous incidents of this, where he literally follows her and jumps into her car, pushing her friends out of the way to get in there, right? And then he releases a video on his own account where he says, oh, like, if I can't have you, no one can have you. I'm going to make you miserable. Everywhere you are, I'm going to be. That is a threat, especially from a man who is famous for whooping the behind of his girlfriends, right? Like, to me, I don't see anything yet at this point that can be considered inflammatory, because again, we're seeing actual lawsuits. And then in cases where police criminal complaints were filed, we're seeing those as well, right? And then we're seeing out of Chris Brown's own mouth that he is someone who is admitting to intimidating women, to stalking women, to wanting to make women miserable, right? Like, it was so bad, the things that he said out of his own damn mouth, right? He's admitting he's a terrible person. Women belong to him. They are his property, and you cannot leave him. He said there is no escaping him. If he cannot have you, no one can have you. No one made that up. That was on video. So I definitely do implore you guys to go ahead and watch this if you haven't already. It is a very informative documentary. Theo says, I don't understand why so many women continue to support him. He's shown that he demonstrably does not value them. You know what? I'm telling you guys, I have lost I used to be a whiz. I used to be that girl when it came to the English language. But these days, it's a struggle sometimes. Demonstrably. Merci. Thank you. Voila. And I agree with you. Shamjam says not, because what caused the DV is that Chris is an uncontrollable menace, because there's never a reason to be beating up on your partner like that. I don't care what they did, leave instead, right? And for him, I think it's fun. For him, I think it's a game. I think it's, women deserve this sort of a thing, right? Like, it's terrible. Chip says there's so many victims of Chris Brown. He's a monster. And y'all, I swear, this is why that nickname needs to stick. To me, this man is Fist Brown at this point. Like, and I don't say that to make light of it, but just to remind people, like, no matter what he does to try and clean up his image, he is just this person. It's who he fundamentally is. He could fake being something else, but this is who he is. Because again, in this documentary, they went through a 9-year timeline. So like maybe even more. Like, it's far back, y'all, right? And then in Karrueche's restraining order that was granted against him, she said that he punched her in the stomach a couple of times. And then she also showed text messages of him in black and white threatening to, quote, beat the ish out of her. Again, these are things that are documented, right? And then there was a Brazilian woman who came on, and she talked about how she was invited to a hotel for an after party with Chris and his friends. She was not supposed to have her phone there, but she snuck it in. And then he was acting really weird. I guess he was high. And so she wanted to get a photo of it. And then he saw her whipping out her phone. And instead of just kicking her out of the party, what does he do? He makes his way to her. Again, he picks up his trusty fist and he plants it on her face. And she went to the police to file a police report. This was in Vegas. The Vegas police refused to investigate this. And so next, she decides to do What does she decide to do? She decides to sue him. Chris, he goes online. He says, "Oh, this woman's so ugly. She would never be allowed at a Chris Brown party. Like, no way. I don't freaking know her. Nothing, nothing." But then behind the scenes, the man settles the case. Why did you settle if you don't know this woman? Right? Like, why are you settling if you did nothing to her? So now that's the third person that he has settled with. Right. And then I will say that and actually there was another story about a woman, and she talks about a Chris Brown freak off. And so she goes to this party. There's lots of pills everywhere. There's lots of alcohol everywhere and other things as well. And she gets invited into a bedroom, and she says that there's a bunch of people in there. And then she hears Chris Brown yell to his security from the other side of the door that they need to barricade that door to keep people from going out. So once you're in this room, you are obligated to participate in whatever sorts of freaky shenanigans that he insists on engaging in at that moment, right? And here's the thing. If you accept to go into one of these rooms or whatever, that doesn't mean that you are obligated to participate in anything or to stay. You have the right to change your mind, back out, and leave. So Chris allegedly taking away that right by barricading people, that's scary. And this is not something that came out of thin air, right? Because she too went to complain about this. And what happened? He settles that lawsuit. So how many lawsuits has Fist Brown settled at this point? So many. Why is he constantly settling? Right? This man is so innocent. He goes online, he verbally abuses all these women. He says that they're this, they're that, they're liars, they're everything. Yet every single time this man is settling these lawsuits. Good luck to him suing this network, because they've got an awful lot of proof and an awful lot of testimonies ready, waiting on their side. And I think that this will get even worse for him, because he too will have to answer to certain things, right? In the midst of this lawsuit. I do not believe that this is going to end well for him. And I agree with Cammie, right? Like, and I hate how these men always say this, right? These misogynistic men who treat women like garbage, all of a sudden when they have a daughter, I didn't know women were humans until I had a daughter. Shut the F up, and they truly feel this way. And they think it's such an amazing, like, groundbreaking discovery that women should applaud them for. And I do think that he falls into that category as well. And then we also hear about something in Paris, right? And these are the two where I go, okay, well, maybe these two are not rock solid proof yet, but apparently he did that kind of freak off sort of thing where he allegedly barricaded people in Paris, and a Parisian girl went to the police about it, and then he went and sued her after the charges were not filed against him. And so maybe that's something that people are saying is questionable. And then the last one that I thought was kind of questionable, or maybe what people were complaining about, was a woman. She's anonymous in this documentary, but she's widely known already. Her name is, well, actually, maybe I won't say her name, but she talks about like being on a yacht with Chris and all this sorts of thing. And apparently she's already been exposed. But, in the documentary, they do talk about some quote unquote holes in her story. But there were holes in Chris Brown's story as well, because when he turned over text messages to the police, he only turned over text messages that she was sending him and deleted messages he was sending her. So it looked like she was talking to herself for almost a year, which wouldn't make any kind of sense, right? And then she turned over some text messages, but she had lost some as well. And she claims that it's because she changed providers and then she lost some of the evidence or whatever. So that one is up in the air. But so far, I do think that they were very fair in their assessment. And again, I do implore you guys to go ahead and watch that documentary if you have a moment. It's it's only about 1 hour and 15 minutes or so. And I completely agree, Ali. So I'm happy that girl realized that, and she went to the police. She went and she filed her lawsuit against him too, because sometimes, people try and make you feel like, oh, just because you were in a certain place, you have to accept everything that comes with being in that place. And that's not true. We all have the right to change our minds. Right, Theo? Like, that is some scary like stuff, honestly. So, and this is just the beginning. I think that with Chris, or should I say with Fist suing the network and the production company here, more people are going to come out of the woodwork with their own stories about their experiences with him. I don't believe that only these, dozen people or 8 people or whatever people featured in the documentary are the only people who have had the misfortune of being victimized or allegedly victimized by this person. I think that there's an awful lot more to come. People like this don't just stop after 1 or 2, right? Oh, Lord. Hamlet's Princess, good morning. Nice to see you again. TLC says there have been a lot of women who say that he took their phones and held them at his home for a period of time. One girl escaped and told her story a few years ago, I remember. And you know what? That's what all these girls in this documentary are saying as well. Sorry, you guys, I'm pulling up a pillow because I feel like I'm too low here. That's what all of these girls in this documentary are saying as well. They've all got the same story. Chris Brown is settling left and right. Why would he be settling if what they're saying is not true, right? And mon Dieu, indeed. Franchement, c'est grave. C'est grave. It's serious business, you guys. And by the way, you guys, if you haven't watched and you would like to watch, I do have a link in the description box of my video. One of my sponsors for my channel, Philo, they offer you a free account to sign up with them, right? And they do have those channels. They've got ID, they've got Lifetime, and so you'll be able to watch the documentary over there. Okay, so the link is in the description box of this video. And also, by the way, I didn't finish it yet because it's something I was watching this morning, so I'm only halfway through. And Milan talking about Karrueche coming forward. I do hope that she is featured in this as well. But I don't think that she is. But her story is heavily featured. So kudos to her for getting out of that because that was a mess.